Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. This time doing another in-depth with Paul Nicol. Paul's a good friend of mine. I think we've known each other since about 2016 or 17. I think we met at Canton Fair, and then it was back in the UK, or it was at the first Seller Sessions. I can't remember. But welcome to the show, Paul. Looking forward to getting into your story. There's been a lot of twists and turns. So how are you doing today?
Indeed. Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Danny. Quite surreal for me actually being on, because I've listened to the show, I think, since about 2019, pretty much religiously. So, yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, so we met a bit later then. It was more, I thought it was around 18, 17, but it was 19
I think
that we
met on a flight to Vegas, maybe 2019, the ASM event.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, so it was ASM. It was just after the first Seller Sessions. It was in the July, wasn't it? And the guys who do ASM, what was the name of it? There's a different brand name, but it was the guys behind ASM, wasn't it? And it was in the July. Yeah, that's right. We were flying out together. It was like a bit of a Beano, wasn't it? There was loads of UK sellers heading out. Like someone go, you know, when people go to Ibiza, it's like it weren't rowdy, but there was just like loads of sellers on the same flight, wasn't there? I think there's about. Yeah. When there's not too many of them allowed nowadays, are there? So let's get into your story. Let's take it back to your early years. Growing up, I normally ask the questions, you know, like inspiration from your mum and dad and stuff like that. You know, where did the inspiration? We can talk about that, but as you've noted in your chair, is that your parents split at the age of 4, and then you were raised by your gran, right? So what was those early experiences like for you?
Yeah. Parents split when I was really young. Quite fortunate way though, because they both then ended up finding new partners pretty quick. So I ended up with like 2 families. Obviously still quite a traumatic period, but because they're kind of working class, they were out at work all the time. Although I didn't live with my gran, she did help raise me, and it was really influential, I think, in my early years, just in terms of like building discipline and structure and that kind of work ethic, really. But no real entrepreneurs in the family as such.
And you mentioned that you were early into sports and stuff. You did combat sports in terms of karate and stuff and running. I suppose that gave you a little bit of early discipline as well as a youngster.
Yeah, definitely. And I think at the time I used to go to karate, I think from maybe like 7 for about 4 or 5 years, twice a week. And at the time I didn't love it, but when I look back quite fondly on it, because it was like that kind of self-discipline and motivation and structure and all those good things. And yeah, I was also a keen runner from a young age again. When I look back, and I still do it to this day, it really helps clear your mind and focus and all that stuff.
Yeah. And, you know, you like just going back to the karate bit. I mean, I've got some notes here from our discussion, and you mentioned like you wasn't bullied at school. Not that you want people to be bullied, but you weren't. But do you think it's part of that is because the discipline with the karate, you kind of carry yourself differently when you've do a combat sport?
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? Meaning that you know you got nothing to prove, right? So you do karate, and then so you're calm. Most people that do combat sports, not all, are just generally calm because they're comfortable in their own skin, aren't they? You know, they haven't got anything to prove from ego.
I think that is true. In my case, I'm not sure. I think I was just kind of maybe just a bit smarter about staying under the radar and kind of got on with most people. But yeah, no, I think it's a good point. My own kids just now, they don't do anything like that. But yeah, I think there is a lot of value in that for sure. And yeah, a lot of lessons from it for me personally.
Yeah, indeed. Obviously, school, you were hard working and stuff. What was education like for you? Were you stimulated by it? Boring? Were you suspended from school or anything?
No, that was definitely
running around like a nutcase?
It was always like conscientious. I think it was just that kind of work ethic was drilled into me. And I don't think I had pressure from my family as such, but in my mind I was always like, you need to go to higher education, go to uni, get a good job. So they're the complete opposite of a traditional entrepreneur, really. And I think that it wasn't from my family, the pressure. I just think like the peer group around me, that was the kind of mindset, and that's what we thought. And so that's kind of the route that I ended up going down, really.
And then what was it like? You left school, you mentioned, I think you went into corporate and stuff, like, so it was completely opposite to entrepreneurship. But did you feel that you just did it for the money kind of thing? Did you have any direction? Did you know what you wanted to do? Or is it just the sake of being a hard-working Scotsman? I've got to get out there and do a job. I can either go out on the tools or I can go and work in an office.
That was it. Yeah, I think it was just that work ethic thing. So I went to uni in Glasgow, where I was brought up. Weirdly, at the time, I didn't want to leave, which is, looking back, is odd, because I've literally, since I went to uni and then started working, I've never lived there. And I've moved around quite a bit. But finished uni, so say like 21, I think, and moved down south to work in like a graduate corporate role for Abbey National at the time. And I kind of ended up doing that for, I think, about 16 years. The only thing I would say is I did work in more like contract type roles. So rather than going in as a permanent employee and getting sick pay, holiday pay, all that stuff, I would go in and do like 3 6-month contracts at a time. The upside was that you would get paid a daily rate and get paid more than your peers, really. But you didn't have any of the benefits. I think the notice period was 24 hours. So when I kind of look back on that, as much as it was a corporate job, it was a kind of entrepreneurial bit to it. And it wasn't...
Well, because you had no safety net. It was contract basis. There was no golden, there's no watch at the end or anything, right? No clock. It's not a job security because you're a contractor and they can get rid of you pretty much at any time. So whilst it's not entrepreneurial, like you're actually selling time to someone effectively like a consultant's role, and, even though you're doing the job, it's, operating in kind of that freelancer capacity, really, isn't it?
That's it, yeah.
So what you did that for 16 years. What made you then suddenly go, do you know what? In 2018, I'm going to start my Amazon journey.
No, it was crazy that it was like a journey up until that, really, I would say. Definitely was doing the roles for the money, wasn't really particularly challenged. I didn't hate it, but got like pretty much zero fulfillment really from it. But the one upside was that it did allow me to take these extended breaks between the contract roles, like 3 6-month breaks at a time. So we did, I want to say like 3 or 4 times now, I've been away like extended trips. And it was at the end of 2017. By this point, we've got two young kids, and we'd done like a round the world trip: Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka, Australia, Fiji. And it was during that I started researching. Like, I knew I didn't want to go back to the same job, so I started researching other stuff that was out there. Really listening to podcasts.
Yeah, and then so what got you to Amazon? Though obviously did you get to a point 16 years in the game and then you decided you're going to do Amazon, or were you in search of something and then suddenly you started?
I was always in the little side gigs, always trying to do something. Nothing really worked. But one of the big pivotal moments actually for me was when, I think it was our eldest daughter, our youngest daughter was at nursery, and I was always kind of semi-happy in the corporate role. But I remember one event, I think it was like a Christmas nativity play thing she had. And I had to go and ask like my current boss at work for time off to go and watch her nativity play. I remember, and the guy at the time, he was okay with it. He made a bit of a fuss. I don't know, it was definitely like a kind of trigger in my mind, like a grown man going to ask another grown man for time off to go and see his daughter. I was like, nah, I'm not doing that anymore. And that was definitely like the catalyst for me to say I need to find something where I'm kind of my own boss, So I think that was more the trigger to then start looking at different things. And I came across a podcast by a guy called Mike Dillard, who's like a big internet marketing guy. It was a super interesting, and I still follow him to this day. But he had a guest on. It was Ryan Moran, who's obviously big in Amazon. I don't know if he still is, but certainly back then was. And it was him that kind of opened my eyes to the Amazon thing, and then subsequently signed up for ASM, like a lot of people do. Yeah, that's where it all started, really.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're saying that you did want to go and ask another grown man for some time off. And I think it's important as fathers, like, our kind of thing, I suppose, is it's like built into our biology, is like point us in the direction and we work to the bone to support our family. Our partners work as well. That's not just, But I think the guy's mentality, but then you miss out time with your children, right? So you miss the plays and stuff like that. And these are times that you can't get back. And so you think you're doing the right thing. You go, right, I've got to get as much money in as the family to say the family has a good life. Obviously, your partner is working as well in and around that. But I think it's just our mindset. And then we have to be really careful is that I call it presence over presence. And what I mean by that is that my daughter would much prefer my time and energy versus a gift. Does that make sense? So you give her the gift of your attention. And I actually learned that quite late, you know, because for me, I was just like trying to build resources for the family, you know, and I'd go out 6-7 days a week. I was teaching audio engineering back then when she was younger. And so, but it gets to a point, you know, you miss out on them growing up, but you feel that you're doing the dutiful thing by going out and, you know, going and earning money, basically.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. Like, the time goes by so quickly, you know, you don't get it back, so, for sure.
Absolutely. So, discovered Ryan Moran on the podcast, then into ASM, and then you started to buy up some courses and stuff. Do you want to walk through those up to the point of getting samples?
Yeah. So we were away traveling. We were in Bali, funny enough, which is like subsequently found out it's quite a big Amazon sellers hub. They signed up for the ASM, and at the time, I can't remember exactly. I want to say it was maybe about $4,000, which is a lot of money to anyone. But then it was a lot to us because we were away traveling. It was a budget trip. We were in budget accommodation, so I definitely kept that one quiet from the wife at the time. But I just like threw myself into it. Like, it was a lot of money. I'm the type of person, like, if I commit to something, I'm going to give it my best shot. And that's kind of what I did. Because we were traveling, we were like in hostels, the kids would go to bed at like 8, 8:30 most nights. It was lights out, and I was just staying up like on the laptop, like just really immersing myself in ASM and all things Amazon, really. By the time we got back to the UK.
Can I ask a quick question? Sorry, you just mentioned an important point. Like, you went off and done the course. You'd done it for the right reasons, but $4,000 back then was a lot of money. How do you reconcile that with your partner? I mean, it worked out today. Look at the view behind you, and you've got exits behind you. But there's always that big risk, doesn't it, to take a chunk of money like that and like be quiet about it, but trying to still be respectful. How did you handle that?
I just kept it quiet from him. But no, for me though, and I've subsequently said this to the guys at Amazing, like, I think the course is good. It's a great starting point. But for me, the biggest thing I probably got out of it was the fact I paid so much for it. And I was like, I need to make sure I do this now. So it's that kind of, you know, it really motivated me.
It's the sunk cost, isn't it? It's like, there's such a big investment because basically one of those, it's a bit of a Hail Mary. Is like, it's got to work because I got to explain where $4,000's gone, and it didn't work. And then you've got to build on the trust for the future. But if you do it and it pays off, then it's good. But if it doesn't, so that waking up every day with that little bit of extra step, do you know what I mean? Extra, your blood pressure's up and you're up in the morning. Do you know what I mean? It gives you the will to win then, doesn't it? Because there's so much.
Indeed. Yep.
So we're in Bali. We came back to the UK in 2018. You're waiting on samples. What were the products, if you can name?
So by the time I'd got back, I'd already samples waiting on me in the UK, and we started with baby products. So it was a little suction bowl, suction plate, bibs, spoons, a little feeding set kind of thing, which at the time we were kind of unique on Amazon back then. Now it's like completely saturated. So that was the samples. Tested them out. Like, our kids were, certainly Ella was 1 year old, so she was like, we were testing out with her. Ruth, my wife, was basically our avatar. Like, we bought all the products, we knew them all, so we knew the factory we found was good, and we kind of quickly moved forward from there. Okay,
and then where do we go next? Starts to unravel now. You still got the day job. You're still signing on contracts. You've got 2 young children. Yeah. How were you juggling all that?
I mean, it was hard. We definitely started to get momentum quite quickly. We were quite fortunate that way. And at the time, I remember when we started, in my mind, I was like, well, I think this could maybe pay for like a nice holiday for us once a year as a little nice side gig. And it went from that to, Ruth, because at the time Ruth was thinking about going back to work. She was in maternity. So it went from like, a side gig, holiday once a year to, Ruth, I don't think you need to go back to work here, you can help out with this, to then me being, I think I can quit my day job, to being like, this is a sellable asset that we can have a big payday from. I want to say that was like a year, but those 4 steps, it was crazy fast. But in terms of like juggling it, like I was up early because I was still working. I was up maybe 5 a.m. Working for a couple of hours, seeing the kids, into the day job in London, literally on the laptop in the train, in the office, sneaking into meeting rooms, on the phone to seller support, responding to customers, just doing everything. It was crazy. And then back, tucking the kids into bed and then working at night. So, I mean, it was hard work, and as we'll get into, I'm sure we kind of got a bit lucky along the way as well. But definitely kind of, I think I made my own luck back in those early days for sure.
And then started meeting people, started hitting the event circuit as well, didn't you? So you got to meet other sellers. What impact did that have on the business as well, knowing that you're not doing everything in a silo?
Yeah, no, it was great. Like, I loved that. And seeing my corporate job, there was obviously a kind of network element to that. I would hate those events. Like, I'm not a super outgoing person.
Yeah.
Really do anything to avoid them. See, when it came to the Amazon stuff, the complete opposite. I loved it because I was really interested in the subject. And obviously in the space, like, people are sometimes a bit secretive about their brands, but most people really want to share and help. And obviously, like, seller sessions at that time, I was involved in Titans and Athena stuff from, like, I think the start, really. Kevin King's Freedom Ticket. Like, I was pretty obsessed just with learning as much as I could, really.
Yeah. And then, after, as you started to get further in, you started to go to China, do the trips and stuff.
Yeah.
How did that impact
you?
So
I want to say we're now into, say, early 2019. It was actually a guy I met, I think it's Seller Sessions, I forgot his name now, and he'd been in the baby space, and he was like, you need to start going to these events in China if you want to really grow, and he gave me the exact trade show to go to. So I went there in February.
Was that Anthony?
I remember he sold it.
Might have been Anthony. He sold his brand now, but he was in the same space.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it's Anthony.
Quite possibly. But yeah, no, I definitely owe that guy a beer for sure. So I went out there and went to the show. We met, got loads of samples, spoke with various factories. But one of the products that came out of that trip was our baby food maker, which was like an electrical item to cook and then puree baby food. And that was brilliant for us. To this day, I think it's the best seller on Amazon. It's either position 1 or 2. It's got 8,000 reviews, 4.8 stars. Yeah, it was a real great find, that one.
Excellent. And where do we go next? You're coming up close to quitting the day job now.
Yeah, so it was towards the end of 2019 I quit the day job. But I think the month before, I'd been in China a couple of times that year. And then the October of 2019, I went back to see the factory, the baby food maker factory, and they had this new product at the time, a UV sanitizer, which was a little bit different. There was nothing like that on Amazon, particularly marketed for babies. So it used UV light to sanitize baby bottles, baby dummies, pacifiers, that type of thing. And when I was looking at the numbers, the plan, I want to say it was to sell at around about $100. So it was quite an expensive product. And the target was 5 units a day with the margin about 20-25%. And in my mind, I was like, if I can hit that, that's a decent little product to add on here. So came back from China, quit the day job the next month, in November, maybe going into December of 2019, which was a really big event for me. Because in my mind, probably for a year, I just built up to it. I was really desperate to get out and then focus on Amazon full time. So that was a big one. Definitely. Then we launched the sanitizer the next month, so January.
January 2020, you launch a sanitizer. January 2020. 2020 vision. Unbelievable moonshot landing, serendipity. I don't know any other words that I can use, but the universe come together in that January for you.
It really did.
How much fucking foresight.
If
you were bullshitting yourself, you could say, I see it coming, Dan. I see it coming. And you clearly didn't, right? No one did. Let's talk about that. That's incredible.
Yeah. So it was unbelievable. We started off, and sure enough, in January we started selling 5 units a day as I'd planned, and then COVID came in. Yeah, I should go back and look at the numbers, but it's just such a crazy period of we went from 5 units a day, 10, 20, 40, 60 units a day, all the time. The price, I was trying to keep it in stock. Obviously, going out of stock's not good on Amazon. At one point, I think we're up at $250, and we were selling like 50 units a day, sometimes more. So it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was all just trying to balance the cash.
No disrespect, but that's next level price gouging. You're doing it to keep it in stock so you don't lose rank, right? But the side effect of it, the price is so high that would be considered as price gouging. But you didn't do it for that reason. It was like, I don't want to go out of stock. I don't want to have any nightmares. And you put it up so that people didn't buy it and they just carried on.
That's it. And I was increasing it so much that Amazon were losing the buy box on Amazon. But it didn't matter. People just bought it anyway. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I did feel a little bit bad. Because obviously people were desperate at that time.
Yeah, no, I know you, Paul. Like, I know it wasn't, let's clean up and scaremongering. That's not in your character, as we'll get into later. Yours come from a stock position, and you thought, as a Scotsman, you know, I've got Scottish blood, Macmillan, right? He's like, no one's going to pay $250. And then they did. And it weren't 10, it weren't 20, it weren't 30, it weren't 40. And they just carried on buying. And it's like, this is ridiculous. And I've lost the buy box, yet people are still buying.
Yeah. No, it was crazy. But the flip side of that was that we had to just borrow as much money as we could to keep it in stock. I remember going to the bank and saying we're doing loft conveyor, just like anything we could to get our hands on extra money. So we were really exposed in the end. And my thing with the Amazon business was always like I'm happy to take the risk. I never want our house to be at risk. But it kind of got to the point that it was, not directly, but indirectly it was if it fell over. So it was just, it was a crazy period, and we got to the point it was like, well, this is now like a sellable asset, and one which I think we kind of need to sell now because our exposure is really big here. The only one good thing is that we negotiated payment terms when we were in China. Leiden from Times, it's really good training that. He gave me good advice on how to negotiate terms. So we ended up with 30 and 60 day terms ultimately. So that definitely helped. But even then, we're still sinking.
And then where do we go from here? Obviously, you got them negotiated, put them into place. You know, it was a rough ride for everyone because no one really knew what was going on. And then obviously we started that was the emergence of the aggregators. Obviously, we had end of 2019, we started to see a little movement in the market, and then the bubble was up when people come knocking on your door. We're now at June 2020.
Yeah.
So you've got a sellable asset. Where do we go?
So what was interesting at that time, the aggregators absolutely were there, but the multiples were low from the aggregators at that time. So we didn't actually speak to them.
What, even in the June?
Yeah, it was still down at like 2.5x for the most part. So I ended up listing with a broker, and he, like, it was great. He put me in front.
Yeah, I got my years wrong. It's June 2021 was when it was like out of control. As you start to see a dip come round in the October, November, and then January deals stopped doing. January 2022 is like game over. Yeah. So I think, I've got the year wrong. It was June 2022, 21. Is it 21? There's 2020. It's 21, didn't it? It was 21, and then January 22. Yeah, I'll get my years messed up. Apologies.
Yeah, no worries. So we were a little bit early for the aggregators, to be honest, the aggregators. But we listed with the broker, and it was a crazy valuation. Obviously, these brokers want, like estate agents, they want to go with them, so they promise like a really big price. But we got out in front of a lot of buyers. I want to say there was maybe 10 to 12 interested buyers, and that involved like sitting on a call with them for hour and a half easy, where they would just like grill you in all aspects of the business, which I had to learn fast because I had like zero experience of that. And it was me literally in the front room in my pajamas talking to these like seasoned private equity type negotiators. So like super interesting. I had to kind of learn on my feet a bit, and I went down the road of like initial due diligence with one of these guys. It wasn't a private equity, it was literally just an individual guy. But for some reason, I don't know, maybe just so much was going on at the time, but yeah, it was the wrong guy to pick for sure. We ended up wasting about a month going back and forward, and the broker said to me at the time, I don't think this guy's got the money to complete in this deal. And then after wasting a month, it turned out that was the case. So that was a bit unfortunate. But then we found the buyer that we ultimately went with, I want to say maybe September of 2020, signed the letter of intent and started going into the due diligence process. But again, as a result of this, the 100 miles an hour, trying to keep up with everything, I didn't really have a very good grip of the financials. I'd kind of outsourced that to an accountant in the US, and he unfortunately messed up quite significantly in that a lot of our shipping costs he just missed. Like he didn't include them in the P&L. So we realised this after we signed.
Yeah, so it looks a lot more attractive.
Yeah, exactly. It made it look a lot more attractive.
So it was a lot more attractive as business.
Exactly.
And then that sets the tone with the buyer thinking you're hiding stuff, and you're now starting to backslide.
Exactly. Right? Well, I mean, we found it first before the buyer. That obviously they were going to discover it, so we had to then go back to the buyer, which wasn't a good look, to go back and say we've messed up. And they quite rightly were like, well, we need to renegotiate on this deal because the numbers aren't what we thought they were.
Yeah.
So that was kind of fair enough, and we had to do that. So we kind of renegotiated. So that was renegotiation 1, and then in the October, as we progressed through diligence, a new competitor to the sanitizer launched, and literally the day they launched, we got 31 one-star reviews on our listing, and in the
I remember you messaging me. Yeah, you're like, Dan, what do we do? I know you was hitting up everyone because it just hit you, didn't you? So I've just been attacked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so yeah, in the previous 9 months, I think we did 2 one-star reviews. It was a really good product, and we had a really good customer service and dialed-in strategy for sorting customers' issues. And it was all broken English, one line, this burnt my house. It was just crazy reviews, blatantly. They didn't do a good job of it, to be fair. So that spooked the buyer more. And then Amazon also delisted us, I want to say, for a week maybe, for a compliance thing, testing certification on that sanitizer. So again, the best-selling product, So the buyers took that as opportunity to renegotiate further. At which point, we're well into legal fees because I'd wasted all this time with this initial guy. I think we're about 50k in legal fees at that point. I didn't have the money to pay that if it fell apart, so I had to keep moving forward, I felt. And looking back, I was being very transparent on these calls with the buyer, saying things. It was really naive when I look back. I was saying things like, this is a life-changing amount of money for me, that type of thing, which is really naive. To those guys, they're just rubbing their hands at that, obviously. So when we got to this point, they were just pushing hard to renegotiate, we're going to walk away, this isn't what we thought it was, it's high risk. And then there was the COVID vaccine. It was starting to get press, and there was talk about that coming out. So all those things just gave them the upper hand, really. But what we did do as part of those negotiations, again, naive looking back, but the upfront money that was promised, a lot of that was put into the contingent pot, hit X numbers, you'll get it. So the total deal size was still the same. In my mind, I know that's not great, but I think we're going to hit those numbers. What subsequently turned out was that we didn't, and ended up with a lot less really than what I might have had.
So we're into a rough ride, and it's still not finished yet. So let's get to the exit. We're December 2020.
Yeah, so the guys...
And this is where it really starts. If you think it's been interesting now, guys, listening to this podcast, now it gets even more interesting.
Yeah, so we had renegotiation 2, renegotiation 3. We got the deal over the line. I think it was the 2nd of December 2020. So 2 years and 2 months after our first sale on Amazon, and obviously we got lucky through COVID and the sanitizer, but it was super fast, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that was obviously, as much as it wasn't as much as it might have been, it was still obviously a brilliant event for us. Done like, listened to a few of these with the other guys that have exited, like the refresh on the online banking app, waiting for the money to arrive and stuff.
It's funny because I've done loads of life after exits, and nearly everyone's, I say to them, "What did you do?" They went, "Nothing." 2 days later, a bottle of wine, had a meal, chilled out. There's more relief than anything else. It's just like, it's like the exit is like the ultimate thing, and then you get there, and it's like, yeah, and that's all it was. Some more, zeros in the bank, and that's it. And then on we go. And then normally the biggest panic is, well, where are we going to get revenue stream from now without having to touch the principal? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's mad, isn't it? When you think of what you should expect, the elation and everything else, most of the time it's just relief. Most of the time you just want to rest. And then the panic kicks in. Well, I want to make sure that I invest this money properly because this could be my last big event, liquid event. So the panic starts is like, okay, let's start investing. Now we need some income streams that give us, our day-to-day, without having to dip into the money, which is basically our future. So what, you did a shopping trip. Oh, well, you went to Dubai. I'm just looking at the notes here.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it got cancelled. Let's talk about Dubai then. The idea about Dubai, was that going to be your little lavish bit of time together, you and your wife?
That was it, yeah. So we went, and if you remember that period, it was like Christmas was on, and then it was cancelled kind of thing. And there was a small window where you were actually allowed to travel overseas to like a handful of countries if you had like the vaccine and whatever testing. So we're like, do you know what? Let's just go and do it. We went to go for a week, but literally as we got to Dubai, like Christmas was cancelled in the UK. It was like no one could go. Schools were off. So we ended up. And Dubai was like, it wasn't normal, but you could be outside, everything was open. We ended up staying there for 5 months, which was, lucky for us, it was brilliant. But at that point when we're out, like you mentioned about like investing the money and stuff, like my mind was very much like, I think I can do this again on Amazon. I'm just like, I'm going to go all in on Amazon and multiple other brands. And I subsequently found out that we did get quite lucky the first time around, and the strategies which we used first time weren't working again. And we can maybe go on to that in a bit. But in the January, so we were December in Dubai, 5 weeks after the deal closed, the UV sanitizer product got delisted by Amazon, like properly like taken down, dog page type of thing. And yeah, not good, particularly because I had all these contingency payments. And I also had a 3-month transition clause in the contract, so I was still like transitioning the brand over. So for me, I was like, I need to try and get this fixed. And after a lot of research, we realised that it was actually the EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency, had instructed Amazon to take our sanitizer down. And this was only after some proper LinkedIn stalking that I managed to find this out. The issue was that we were using the term UV sterilizer, when in actual fact we should have been calling it a UV sanitizer. To this day, I don't know the difference. And if you go onto Amazon today, you'll see literally every competitor still calls it UV sterilizer, apart from us. So we'll figure that one out. But I ended up working with the guy, the Environmental Protection Agency. We went through all the listing, all the manuals. I had to take thousands of units out of Amazon, get it all reprinted, reboxed. So obviously the buyers are like super pissed off at this point because the product was down for months without it selling. It was the best selling product. And then obviously COVID was going away, which, was brilliant, but for them, the sales were just tanking even when they came back. So as a result, they filed a lawsuit against me personally. I think this was the May or the June of 21 for literally millions of dollars in damages.
So for clarity, your buyer, because there hasn't been that many stories around it, I think yours has been the most pertinent out of all the sellers that have exited. Your buyer hit you with a multi-million lawsuit because of the situation with the delisting.
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's get into that, because we had some chats around that time as well. You sought legal and stuff like that, and I know you was really stressed. So let's unpack that bit.
Yeah, no, that was like a super. I'm like a fairly laid back person, but when I got that email, that was like a super stressful event, because at the time it was actually for more money than they'd given us at that point. So I couldn't have paid it even if I wanted to. But their argument was that there was a shipping issue. I think in the October, so in the run up to the sale, when I still owned the brand, there was a shipping issue in the US, and it was completely unrelated to this sterilizer versus sanitizer issue. It was a labelling issue. So I think the reference number was something wrong. But at the time, it was just like one of the hundreds of fires that you put out, and like working on an Amazon brand for me. So it almost like straightforward. I sorted it. They had to relabel it a warehouse. It was all resolved. So I hadn't even mentioned it to the buyer because it was literally back in my mind. But they were making the argument that because of that shipping issue, we should have been notified of this, and it was related to the. So I can fundamentally disagree with it. But yeah, they did have an argument, as it turned out. So I obviously sought legal advice, spoke to people like you and everyone that I kind of knew in the industry. And the guidance, the legal advice that I got was that they were very unlikely to win this if it went to like a court setup. But for me to defend myself, it would probably have taken about 2 years and cost me in excess of $500K just to defend myself. And they were saying there's no guarantees, we can't say for certain that you would win this. So I was kind of, again, hands tied, like I had to come to some sort of settlement with them. And they obviously knew that as well, they're smart negotiators. But yes, it's a really important point that if you're considering selling a business, and what I've done for my new brands is any issue I get on Amazon, I literally just get a file that I take a note of it. And when I go to sell next time, I'll be like, by the way, here's all the relatively small problems we've had. Because if there's anything there, they can leverage it,
But as it is, like with you, as you said, you're quite a laid back guy. But you're able to reconcile this, which is incredible. Like there could have been so much bitterness in between. Not only did you reconcile the issue with the buyer, you actually went to work for it.
Yeah, no, a ridiculous ton of events.
So let's get into that. I mean, how much more bizarre? I'm lost words. I mean, how bizarre is that? Like, it's bitter, isn't it? In terms of you sell to someone, then they want to sue you for millions, which will literally wipe you out, even if you tried to defend yourself. You make peace, and then you go and work for him, and then he gives you more money. Let's get into that. I need to understand that. Like, my head's not getting it.
Yeah, I think I forgive easy, Dan. I think it's fair to say that. But no, what happened? The first few calls we had, don't get me wrong, it was proper frosty. I was so angry because I had done so much to help them get the listing back. And I'd even emails from the CEO at the time messaging me saying, Paul, look, thanks so much for your effort. I wish we had more people like you, those type of messages. So it was, in my mind, it really stabbed me in the back. But taking a step back, it's like, well, it's business, that they're in it to make money. Like, I was selling the business to make money. And we ended up.
And you know what you learn as well? There's a saying, it says, if you take revenge, dig a grave for them and one for yourself. Revenge never works out. Do you see what I mean? So, and bitterness and, and victim mentality and everything else. And if you can be stoic about it and you can put it right and take your emotion out of it, often there is a way to getting the deal done and being peaceful. You don't have to be at war all the time. Do you know what I mean? War takes too many battles, leaves too many scars. Do you know what I mean? And then you've got nothing left to give.
Yeah, 100%. And it wasn't easy. The first few calls, I was really pissed off and it was definitely a bit frosty, but I knew I had to get a resolution. So it did take a bit of time because, again, they want to negotiate the best deal, but they don't want to spend $500K, $1 million in legal fees that they probably wouldn't have been able to recoup. So we kind of both didn't want it. So we had to get to a settlement. And after months, several months.
Yeah, I don't think it would have ever gone there because normally what happens is, when people, it's a scare tactic and then it's who blinks, And so sometimes it's used like, well, we've been in business, because I used to get it when I had a business in the construction field. There used to be a thing called break the contractor. Right. And being a small contractor and having a team of guys going out, what would happen is they will slow down payment until they stop paying. And what break the contractor means is that you'll get guys on site, you pay them, then you slow down the payment, then you stop paying them, then you run out of cash so you can't pay your own guys, then you've defaulted on your contract, then they bring in a new firm where most of the work's been done, and then they bring their project in under budget, and then they get a bonus for that. So they actually actively do that. And there was a few times that they threatened us, and I've got a good legal consultant that I still use to this day. nearly 14 years I've been working with him, and that's got me out so much stock because, as a small business, they think that you can't defend yourself legally and the cost of doing so. But at that time I was paying £25 to £50 a letter. So when they were coming for us, I could spend £300, £400, £500 on letters, and then they gave up in the end and they stopped pushing it. So you'll find is that it's like you're the small guy, we're the big guys. And so what they do is they see how far they can threaten you to see if they can get you in line. And most people will get in line. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And this is exactly what happened there. It was kind of bullying tactics, I think. So we ended up, we came to a deal where they were going to keep the holdback, which was basically about 10% of the upfront fee was being held back for 12 months. That was just kind of standard in a lot of these deals. So I was meant to be getting that payment. They then kept that. We did renegotiate some of the final payments that hopefully I will get at some point down the road when they exit the business. And I then went back to work for them on the baby brand, which had tanked by this point. And they'd also acquired another really big brand, which I was helping them with as well. So I was basically getting paid a salary or a monthly income to go and work for them. It worked out okay in the end, to be fair.
Yeah, congrats though, because that's a lot to take on, and the fact that you were able to put it to the side, the differences, and understand because you know that you've been bullied, and then you go back to work for someone. It takes a lot to park that to one side, and just get on with the job in hand and move forward. So congrats on that, because that's not for everyone. It takes a lot of forgiveness to do that. You've got to forgive them, and you've got to forgive yourself, and then you've got to get to that line of working together. So we got through all this. You're no longer working with them now. You've delivered on your side. They're happy. You're happy. Yeah. Let's talk about new brands.
Yeah, so pretty much when we went to Dubai after we sold, I started working on new brands and done some partnerships with other people, failures as well. I think, as I alluded to earlier, I was super bullish on Amazon. I felt like I had a kind of niche, more expensive products, and I thought I could almost launch anything with quality reviews we could win, and it turned out we couldn't. I think Amazon definitely changed over that period. COVID obviously woke up a lot of big brands to the Amazon opportunity. So yeah, it was tough, but fast forward, I guess, 2 years and a bit, I've now got two brands which are looking pretty successful, looking to build towards an exit there. I think maybe 12, 18 months away on two of the new brands, but definitely had failures along the way. I feel like out of the products I've launched since we sold the baby brand, probably 50% have failed that we've lost money on. It's tough there for sure. It's not as easy as I thought it was at the point where we exited.
Yeah, timing plays a massive role, isn't it? And we done a podcast a few years ago. If you go to sellersessions.com, do a search called The Luck of the Amazon Seller. We're talking about probability factors. I brought on engineers. I think Ellis was on there, Brandon was on there. I got Evelyn Domarov. And it's like you could have one successful brand in one area and be super successful, launch a new brand in a different category, do exactly the same thing, same team, put more money into it, and it fails miserably. Because there's an element of luck in there and timing as well in the market.
Yeah, no, 100%. One thing we have with quite a bit of success, because with the baby brand, I was just focused on Amazon, Amazon ads, all of the good, Amazon strategies and tactics and stuff. But that's what I was trying to do second time around, and I think it has changed. So we've now started looking at working with like affiliates and influencers. We've had quite a bit of success with that. That's driven quite a lot of external traffic to these new brands, which is definitely helping us. But I think it is that you need to look wider than just Amazon now. I'm hearing that from quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's changed. You know, I'm going to do a show on building brands. I want to present some ideas as when people talk, I won't go into too much detail, but when people talk about building a brand on Amazon, I get it, but there's also that part of, okay, you build a brand on Amazon. Your brand is only worth what it is on Amazon if you only sell on Amazon. Because if Amazon suspended you or banned you, the next day, the value of your business goes to zero. You've got the brand recognition, you've got assets and everything else, but no one would want to buy that brand. And when we talk about brands, it's different because there's Nike and all the big brands that use Amazon as a channel. Do you see what I mean? But there's a load of stuff I'm going to unpack around building a brand on Amazon. And I'm saying, yes, build a brand on Amazon, but there are so many different artifacts I want to cover to get people to think about. Is that Amazon's a brand. This is a game of keywords. And especially when it comes to brand name keywords as well. It makes a massive difference. So I'm going to do a whole show and break that down. I think I'm going to do that with Adam Heist. So I totally agree about building brands. But I want people to have a little bit of a rethink in a certain way, because if you're talking about building a brand on Amazon, your brand is only valuable whilst on Amazon. The moment you're not selling on Amazon, you go to zero effectively if someone wanted to purchase your company, because there is no other outlet to sell products of your brand. If your brand strength is that good, then you'll be able to sell anywhere, right? Because you've got the brand recognition. But your brand recognition is in an ecosystem, which is Amazon, which is one of the most trusted brands in the world. So the building off of Amazon right now is really important, really important. And I'm going to go into stuff around branded keywords because of the cost of acquisition, et cetera, and then we'll do some comparisons. Because I've seen 2 to 3 accounts maybe weekly since 2018. So I've had eyes on between 600 and 1,000 7-8 figure accounts. So I've seen a lot of patterns, you know. Outside of that, you're only going to get software companies seeing that, because Amazon sellers are often in isolation in their own brands and some of their friends' brands. They don't get to see hundreds or close to 1,000 successful brands doing 7-8 figures. So from that and all the years, you see all the patterns. So each year there's a different pattern profile. This year's pattern profile, you know, I'll give you an example because it's tough out there. I call them Hail Marys. So I get a lot more Hail Marys now coming to come to the agency because their businesses are like that. Like it's going down like that, and they come to you, and I get more and more of those as the months go by. And I'm not scaring people. I'm just saying it's the state of the market. So you see a series of trends, and that's why we call them Hail Mary accounts, because it's like, well, how are you going to turn these around in a sufficient amount of time based on the cash flow at hand, et cetera, et cetera. But then, of course, there are people who are winning. So the Amazon game is a bit tough. I think no one really wants to say it out loud. It is, but it's survival of the fittest and survival of the smartest. Now it's in the nuances of how you succeed on Amazon, and you still need the cash, the grit, and the determination. But it's still a good opportunity. It's just harder to do now.
Yeah, no, that sounds really interesting for sure. It's I think if you're an Amazon only brand, for me the only real option is to exit, because eventually we're going to copy, or Amazon are going to take you down, so yeah, I think it is super important to start thinking off Amazon now.
Absolutely. But then there's the split of the cash, where you're putting your cash, right? Because the opportunity off Amazon is going to cost in acquisition costs and wherever you need to spend your money on marketing, additional stock, etc. So you've only got so much cash. And then you've got to think about your time. Is like, if off of Amazon, how much do you allocate off of Amazon versus on Amazon? The chances are you're going to win if you started on Amazon and come off of Amazon. The chances are in the early days, as always, you're going to do better on Amazon than you are on a third-party site because it's going to make, 20-30% of your revenue off of Amazon. But if you started before Amazon and you built a brand anyway, and then you took to Amazon as a channel, that's a different conversation. Do you see what I mean? So really it is now about is where you put your time and attention and where you're putting your money. And then you've got to look at your risk profile. But Amazon's still a great thing to do. All that's happened is the market's got smaller, right? What I mean by that is harder to do Amazon now. So when it used to be 2015, you could have it as where you can go, I want to try Amazon. I'll throw $1,000 into that, $2,000, $3,000 into that, right? There was a period, but you can't do that no more because Amazon's a grown-up business. So inherently, you're going to get, it's less low-hanging fruit. So less people are coming into the space in terms of volume. So if you look at it as a funnel, I would argue all the courses and stuff out there, they're watched year after year. There are less new people signing in to the courses in the industry across everything. It's not any one individual fault. No one's better than anyone else. It's just the volume that comes down the funnel. So if you've got a funnel up here and you pour all these bodies in, all what's happening is year after year in the last 3 years, less and less and less and less bodies are going and being pushed into the. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, for sure. It's definitely getting tougher. I think more and more Chinese factories obviously selling.
Absolutely.
The bigger brands too.
Because of chat and AI and everything that we've got at the moment, also, you've got to understand that's been a great advantage for the Chinese. Let's say they didn't want to invest too much in marketing. Let's just say that they wasn't that good at optimized listing, language barrier and everything else. All of these new tools not only help Amazon sellers outside of China, it actually improves for them as well. It helps them become more sophisticated and reduces some of the barriers to entry where they were weaker as well. And this is why product differentiation is really important. And this is why building a brand is really important. And this is why if you're going to do perceived value versus real value, you need to make sure that the distance between your perceived value and the actual value in objective reality has a match and a line that's consistent with each other. And what I mean by that is if your product is $30 and the average price of dollars is like the average price of the page is say $15, changing the third bullet point, changing the image and stuff like that isn't going to move the needle with that pricing disparity. Do you understand? So it's regulating your perceived value with actual value. And that's always going to be the end goal.
And funny enough, Danny,
but that can be missed by people.
So I was just going to say, our two new brands are exactly in that category whereby the vast majority of people on the page are down at $30, $40 and we're selling at $70, $80. And it's been a struggle, but we've been able to manage it because we've got good quality products and really good reviews.
But you can, this is the thing, you can win. But you've got to correlate it with, I want to do a premium price product and I want number 2, 3, 4 or 5. That's the problem. When everyone goes, I want to sell this premium price product, yet often the products in positions 1, 2, 3, 4 are high velocity, low margin, low price. So it's setting your expectations. Can you make that work in 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10? Great, then do premium price. Do you understand? It's matching your goals with the reality of the positions that you're going to attain on Amazon, and can you make that work? And that's all it comes down to. But I see a lot of people butt their head against the wall going, I've got to go higher, I've got to go higher. And they've got these as seen on TV brands above them who are a lower price, got more volume, let's say they're supplements. Someone might have 30 units and they go, well, above you 60, 90, 120, 150, and they've got brand recognition and they've got brick and mortar stores. It's like, unless you move a lever, which is the volume that you put in the bottle or your price, you're not going to move that lever and you don't have the same lever for. So it's becoming, it's resetting expectations. It's being smarter about, okay, where do I put my time and attention? Can I rank a product and get it into the top 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? avoiding all the stuff with the black hat and everything else, so you're not being sabotaged. Let that sit. Make sure I've got everything worked out on the back end to keep my cost down as low as possible, then move to the next product. Instead of torturing myself going, can I move from 7 to 4?
Yeah.
Burning more money on PPC. Do you understand? It's about resetting expectations. And I think if you kind of try and look at organic positions, if you've got a premium price product, aim for 6 to 10, not 1 to 4.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to talk to yourself. And unless you're the exception to the rule, unless you're a unicorn pissing the rainbow, you ain't getting them positions for love nor money.
Yeah.
Unless you move extreme levers, which is price. And some people see price as a cop-out. But is it a cop-out or you on a cope? Do you understand? So you've got to find the difference between delusion and objective reality. And if you can set yourself right in there, then you're going to be absolutely fine.
Interesting.
Do you understand where I'm coming from? There's only so many things, little hacks and everything that you can do. But, when you think about Amazon, if Amazon wasn't sensitive, we do have affluent buyers on Amazon. Absolutely. You can sell premium price products. Absolutely. But what's your expectation? Do you want to go into a category where position number 1 is $12.99, 2, I'm giving you examples, $12.99, $13.99, $14.99, $15.99, and yours is $40, and go, I want position 1, 2, or 3. That's what I'm saying. Reset your expectations. Yeah. But then can you say, is there enough velocity and volume in this market to sit in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and make good money, and then move on to the next product? And then you've got less maintenance and stress trying to keep something in place because you're being more realistic about your expectations.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good strategy if you're considering exiting, is launch the product, get it into a decent position, then launch more on top. Then in the run up to the exit is do the fine tuning, get the other extra 5%. So you're really showing that continued growth right up to exit, rather than, like you say, exhausting yourself on one product, maximizing the opportunity. I think it's a more sensible and better play, really.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, I think, because when you match it up, right? So you're an Amazon seller, you've got grit, you've got determination, you never give up. And they are amazing attributes to have, because not everyone's got them. And that's what separates them. These 7, 8 figure sellers are the 1%. That's the difference often. But there also comes the point of what's realistic. And because if you push so hard on that side and you never give up, you end up torturing yourself. Because you're saying, this is a cop-out, I'm not going to drop my price, or I want position number 1, 2, and 3, and you're never going to get it. But you keep doing things to try and get there. And you spend so much time exhausting all your energy on it. It's being able to have that conversation with yourself and go, okay, what's acceptable? Let's avoid that part there. What's the strategy? Is our new strategy to be here, but then we'll put out more products, and then we have it so it's steady. We're not being attacked. We're holding position. Yeah. Do you understand where I'm coming from? It's like working out on that strategy as well. But yeah, I mean, where are we with the brands now? So you've got the 2 brands. You're looking to exit in 18 months.
Yeah, I think 12 to 18 months. So we've got a hair care brand and a door lock brand. And both now, it's took a while, but we've got good traction. We're heading towards that exit. The margins aren't quite where I want them to be yet, but we're definitely moving in the right direction. But one of the big wins we've had is this external affiliate traffic, which we've started, over the last 6 to 8 months. And that's worked really well for us. We've got a fairly small pool of affiliates, but they're driving a ton of revenue. In the last 30 days, across those 2 brands, we've had 131k of external sales from these affiliates. So the way we're doing that is we're paying them a commission on every sale. So we pay them 25%, but we get the 10% brand referral bonus kickback from Amazon. So essentially we've had 131k sales with a 15% ACOS, which is brilliant, And the other really neat thing, and I don't know for certain if this is true, but I feel like we've seen it in our brands, is that the Amazon algorithm seems to really like external traffic. So we've seen our organic position, as much as we're paying 15% for these affiliate sales, our organic position on Amazon is higher up the page. We've managed to get our prices higher on certain products, so more margin. So it's just kind of like a win-win all round, really.
Yeah, I'm going to do a show on that because there's no science literature that shows with external traffic, because people talk about halo effect. There is a halo effect, but not in the way they necessarily think. So I'm going to break that down on the show in a few weeks' time. I've just been putting that together in the background because a lot of people have been talking about it. Does it work? Absolutely. Do you send targeted traffic and get conversions with a good offer? Absolutely. Does that give you an impact on what you're doing? Absolutely. Yeah. But there's a lot more to it than that, because I think people kind of summarize. So none of the literature says any of this, right? Unless there's literature that I've just not seen. But I've got about 10 of them that are out there at the moment. There'll obviously be more, but 10 of the science papers. Most people have their hands on 2 or 3, maybe 4, and I've got 10. None of them say that. So a lot of the stuff is more like, I think this is a signal coming from X, Y, and Z, and we're getting rewarded for this, and we're getting a calculation of this, which is good because there's something happening and everyone's trying to work it out. But there is no science literature that I know of out there that covers it. And I break down a lot of that science literature. I've got my A9 bot dropping soon, which is free. And I'm building the world's largest A9 independent resource. I've dropped an article, 11,000 words, which has been the most in-depth article ever written. Anthony just dropped an article the other day with loads of new stuff, and I'm about to drop additions to this article. So I can't even get into number words of it. There'll be 5 new parts to extend the current article on A9, which is 11,000 words already. So it's probably going to take that up to close to 20,000, which is not for the faint-hearted. But then at least people understand the science literature and how it all breaks down. So I'm building the world's largest free resource for everyone. But I want to get my hands on some literature that gives me, okay, now I understand where the signals come from. Because there isn't. Do you understand? There might be some in masterminds. Some stuff might have been stolen from inside of Amazon, screen grabs and that, and they're all floating around 15 grand masterminds, 20 grand masterminds, maybe. But in the public domain, I've not seen anything in that sense, like there as well. YouTube gives you a scoring of X, Y, and Z and blah, 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 as people will talk about. But if you send really good targeted traffic to your listing, and it's got a good price and people buy, what happens? It goes in the cart. Then someone buys it. It helps with your conversion rate. It's not rocket science. Do you see what I mean? So there's your halo effect in a nutshell.
No, it makes sense. What Amazon been doing recently, which I think is pretty cool, that what certainly we've just started doing, is you can now target like abandoned carts. But there's also chat being able to target like external traffic that you've driven to your page that's not converted. I think that might only be via the DSP portal just now. The stuff like that's really interesting because we're driving a ton of people there that don't convert. So to be able to retarget them, super neat. So it's all interesting stuff.
Well, look, we're going to wrap here. We've gone just past an hour. It's been phenomenal. And I'm so pleased of where you've got to with everything. The fucking ride you've had to endure has been incredible. Your patience of a saint, and obviously the level of forgiveness to get past that point for the greater good is impressive. So congratulations on that. So a couple of last things. Legacy or money?
I've heard you ask this question before in the podcast. Like, where my mind always goes is just like wanting to be like a good person, a good father, good husband, that type of thing. So obviously, like you need money to have a good life and stuff, but for me, that's way more important than the relationship side of things.
Yeah, and that kind of rolls into the next question, which you'll probably repeat the answer, and then I normally ask is, how would you like to be remembered?
Yeah, no, it's definitely the same. It's like family, relationship, friends and stuff for me, 100%.
Cool. That was you in depth. How'd you feel?
Yeah, good. I enjoyed that. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So yeah, proud of you, brother. It's been a long ride. I wish you so much success for you and your family, and obviously the rise with the new brands as well. If people want to reach you, how do they get in contact?
Do you know what? I'm not really on social. Probably Facebook is the only real social media thing I'm on, really. So yeah, that'd be the best place.
Excellent. Paul, thank you for being so candid today and spending your time with us. Guys, I'll be back here next week. Sharon will be up next. Take care of yourself and your family. Much love, and I'll see you again soon.